So a few weeks ago, I shot a video telling you about my grandma, and she passed away in the beginning of December. And thank you for all of you that watched it and just said really nice stuff. I appreciate that. But in that video, I talked about how my aunt was also in the hospital and just not doing well at all. And she perked up a little bit. She came home for Christmas. She got out of the hospital, and then like right after that, she went back in, and on the 30th of December, she passed away. And I've been trying to shoot this video for like over a month now, and it's just been I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Come out here and film. I just couldn't do it. Deleted footage I don't know how many times. But this last Friday was her services, and I flew back to California. I just did a turnaround trip for them. Left here in the morning, was back here in the evening. I had something kind of written out what I wanted to say in the video, and that's what I said there. And I was able to do it there. So, but I wanted to do a little something more. I wanted to tell the world about someone who's more than an aunt to me. Growing up, my friends would tell me about how they'd go over to their grandparents' house. They're both sides of the family, mom and dad. And growing up, I really only had one true blood grandparent, and that's my grandma on my mom's side. She lived with us for since '04. She was always there. She was always around. But up until a couple years ago, I just didn't have a second grandma until my dad's mom came back into the picture, and that's the grandma that passed away just recently. But I didn't know either one of my grandpas. I think I saw one of them once when I was like 2 years old or something like that, and I don't know who the other one is. But I never felt like jealous of my friends having multiple grandparents, because I had something better than that. I had the world's greatest grandma and my mom's mom. I have my aunt, who I call Da, who our cow Daphne is partly named after. I had my Uncle Bob, who was like a grandpa to me. And of course I had my Tiamary, and that's the one that just passed away just a little over a month ago now. And that's the other half of Daphne. That's the street that they lived on when I was growing up, and along with my uncle, we'd call them the Daphne gang. So I figured that was kind of fitting. But growing up, besides my mom and dad, I don't think anyone has had more of an impact on my life than my Tiamary. She, when I was little, I'd see how she acted. I see how she lived her life. She didn't ask anybody for permission other than herself. Everybody would go to her for like guidance, and when I grew up, I wanted to be like my Tiamary. She taught me how to count, not the normal way a kid would with blocks or apples or numbers, but with quarters and cards. You see, I had to learn real quick that I had to get 2 face cards and an ace in order to stay in and not lose one of my quarters in a game we used to play called 31. It's kind of like 21, but just better, funner, and goes a lot longer. And you got 3 quarters, and every time that you had the lowest hand, or someone would get in a suited count 31, you'd lose one of those quarters. The last one with the quarter won the game and won the pot. But my Tiamary, as soon as she knew that I knew how to play the game and how it worked, she was ruthless and would always try and knock me out. That's why I would always sit between my Uncle Bob and my Aunt Da, and they'd always pass me the good cards when I was younger. And those memories of us playing those different card games are just some of the ones that I'll hold so closely to forever, because that was just some of the best times. But as ruthless as my Tiamary was on the card table, she was the complete opposite in life. See, she was one of the most giving and selfless people that I ever met. She helped me, and along with a lot of other people, she supported me in everything, in every venture that I pursued, and every decision I made, even if she didn't agree with it or just didn't understand it. She was there for me and had my back. And that's the main thing, is that she showed up. She was there for birthday parties, graduations, baseball games, and everything in between. There was only one time that she didn't show up. And she did show up, but she left. She had to leave. And that was when I was 7 years old, when I first set foot on a pitcher's mound. I was facing kids that were older and more experienced than I was, and my aunt was so scared for me, and she was pissed off at my dad, that she peed her pants. She peed her pants. She actually had to go home, change, and by the time she got back up to the ball field, the game was over, and she found out that not only did I do well, but of course that I got the win. But that's the main thing, is that she showed up. She was there. I mean, I could go over to their house any day I wanted to, just walk in, say, "What's up?" and hang out there for few hours, help them around the house, and it was just cool. But what I also mean by her just showing up is when we were kids in the summertime on the street that they lived on, Daphne, that house, we would always play baseball in the backyard. It was always my Aunt Da and my sister Brenna versus me and my Tiamary. That was the teams. And you know, when I say she showed up, she would just stand there on defense and make me do everything. And on offense, I would always bat first and try my best to hit a home run, because if I didn't, then Tiamary would have to drive me in. And the way she'd do that, she would stand over the plate, kind of the bat just kind of hanging over like you would do a bunt, just kind of swing it back and forth, swing it back and forth. My aunt would pitch her the ball, and she'd do her best, and just this was her swing. And you know, her equivalent of a home run was the ball going like 15 feet, and that would usually happen on her 5th strike, because of course she got 5 strikes, and then she'd drop the bat and just do her little form of run. But that was always a lot of fun. But those games would always end up in me and my sister fighting because, you know, I threw the ball too hard at her to get her out, or we would end up, my aunt had this mirror ball thing that would set on, like, it was just an ornamental thing, and that we'd end up breaking that somehow, some way. We've broken, I don't know how many we broke of them, but somehow that thing was like a ball magnet, and it would just find it and just it would shatter. And then that would lead to a fight between me and my sister about whose fault it was that it got broken. But that also led to some of the lessons that my Tiamary would teach me, and taught me and my sister, actually. Because when we were over at their house, you didn't want to make Tiamary mad, because my Aunt Da, she was more the one that would discipline us. She would go threaten us with the belt. We knew that she would never, you know, she'd never do it, and we could outrun her, and, you know, just we always knew that it was never going to happen. There was one time that she actually went and got the belt out, and me and my sister, being the devils we were, we stole the belt from her when she just set it down, and we threw it behind their fish tank, and we never found that belt again. I mean, it was like the Bermuda Triangle, where it just disappeared. They've since moved a couple times since then, and moved the fish tank from there looking for the belt, and it was just gone. I don't know what happened to it. It was gone. But with my Tiamary, you didn't want to make her mad, because she could hurt you in more ways than you could count. And still, I feel scars from that day, from the talking tos that she'd give us. See, she would sit us down, she'd look us straight in the eye and go, point her finger at us and say, "You don't do that." Or the worst one was, "I am very disappointed in you." That was that hurts still. That's just like just hurts, you know. I never wanted to disappoint my Tiamary, and I still don't to this day. And I just know that, you know, there have been times to where I had a choice to do something bad or whatever, and her voice in my head of "you don't do that" has stopped me more than once. And knowing that she's looking down on me now, and everything that I do, it's gonna make me choose a lot more wisely, because I'll be able to see it. You don't do that. My Tiamary, she was the strongest person that I think I ever knew. She beat cancer twice, and that's a feat in and of itself. I mean, just really, really impressive. But I remember that day back in 2017 when she got diagnosed with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was 79 at the time, and that made it real scary. She was sitting on my bed in front of my fish tank, and she started crying, and I put my arm around her, and I said, "You beat it once, you can beat it again." And me and her loaded up. We went over to the USC Cancer Hospital and met with the doctors, got a game plan set, and the way it worked out was I was the one, just because the situation was, I was the one that took her to all of her appointments, treatments, chemo, ambulance rides, and really everything in between, especially for that. And in a way, I'm really glad I got to do that, because it was just my small way of being able to repay her for everything that she's done for me. You know, when we'd get to the hospital and we'd show up for her treatments, a lot of the nurses would say, you know, how nice it was that I was there, you know, taking my grandma and taking care of her. Well, it was like an unspoken thing between me and my aunt that I never corrected the nurses and told her that, no, she's just my aunt, not my grandma. Because it was my way of kind of telling her that she was more than meant to me, and it was her way of, not correcting them and showing me that she understood what I was doing. I was more than a nephew to her. But during that time, I learned a lot from her. She's 79 years old. The odds weren't looking good. Stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has knocked more than a few people out. And she taught me, you just never, ever, ever, ever give up. And no matter what it is, you keep pushing through. And that's exactly what she did. During those chemo treatments, it's you're in this room with like 50 other patients and their loved ones, and it's probably one of the most depressing places that you'll ever be in. I mean, it's just sad. Everybody's quiet. It's just everybody's on edge. It's just not a fun place to be at all. Well, not for us. I think me and my aunt are the only ones that can say this, that we're the only people that actually enjoyed going to her treatments. Why? Because we weren't like the rest of the people. We were loud, we were cracking jokes, we were playing games. I got to hear stories that I'd never heard before, and I got to hear all the latest family gossip. We had a lot of fun. It sucked. It was a terrible situation, and I'd never wish that on anybody. But let me tell you something. I bet you she would even attest to it, that we actually had a lot of fun. I got to spend a lot of good quality time with her. We had so much fun that we actually had nurses requesting to take care of us, because they'd say that, we were a breath of fresh air compared to really everybody else. And I think it's because of that we were, staying up and, keeping it light as light as we could, because there is some really scary situations with that. I think that had a lot to do with the reason that she won. She beat it for a second time, and it was actually on her 80th birthday. On her 80th birthday was her last chemo treatment. And I can't tell you how proud I am of her for that. And she beat it again. And she's actually the reason why I started down this path. I hate that disease, that cancer. I've seen it tear down a lot of people. I've seen what it did to my aunt. And I just never want to ever see somebody else go through that. And my way of doing that this is why I started this farm, to be able to put things in our body and other people's body that can do things to prevent that from happening. She's the big reason why I'm doing this. It's the main reason why I started researching stuff. It's why I went down this road. So now I have one hell of a motivation to blow it up and make it big, and that's for my Tiamary. Towards the end and everything, I'm in Texas and she's still in California. And with everything going on in the world, they weren't really letting people into hospitals, and just made it really, really difficult. We really couldn't get in, even if I was able to fly back during that time. So the best we could do is FaceTime. And on what she expected to be her last FaceTime call, she was saying, she was trying to say goodbye. She was still trying to teach me stuff. And on that last FaceTime call, she stressed to me the importance of family and how important it was. And me being 1,000 miles away doesn't make it very easy for me to stay close to people. And there's been things over the last few years that have driven wedges between me and some people that I used to be really, really close to. And on Friday when I went back, I told everybody if there was a wedge that was driven between us, that I'd like to drop it for my Tiamary. It's just clean slate. Let's get started back to new, because she's right. The most important thing is family. So I hope that maybe if you guys have a thing between another family member, you guys just maybe you'll try to drop it, because there's only so much time that you got. But on that last FaceTime call, she was trying to say goodbye, and I wouldn't let her. Everybody else was giving her permission to go, that it was time, but I wouldn't. I know what she's been through. I know what she can take, and I wouldn't let her say goodbye. And I told her what she told me, and that's never, ever, ever give up, and that she had to keep fighting. And that's what she did. A few days later, she perked up a little bit more, and she was able to get home for Christmas. And looking back now, I think that she was ready to go then. Back when she went into when she was in the hospital the first time, I think she was ready to go then. But I know that she got out of that hospital one last time for me. Just one more lesson, just one more reassurance, one more time of just never ever giving up. And when she went back in for the second time, she was very ready. I still really wasn't. Most of us weren't, but we were preparing for it a little bit more, and it didn't make it any easier, and just never will. But that's when she passed away. And now looking back, I'm happy for her, because she's been through a lot. I mean, it's not just the cancer. She went through a lot in her life, and she fought like hell. And I know that she squeezed every last drop of life that she had in her. And now I'm happy for her. But the last thing that I want to say is that anytime that my aunt would get sick, even before the cancer, the first time, I would look at her every time I'd see her for the first time and call her a faker. And at first, when I would call her a faker, she would get a little bit annoyed and ticked off, because I think she thought that I was trying to downplay something bad that she went through. But I think she came to realize that it was just a term of endearment, because it was my way of telling her that she was going to be okay. And even now that she's gone, I'm still going to call her a faker, because she's not really gone. She's just alive in a different way. And the lessons that she's taught me, my mom, my sister, my aunt, my grandma, who's a twin, the memories that we made, those live on, and that makes her live on, and that's how we can live forever. And it's our job to keep that alive and pass those lessons on to future generations. So yeah, she's still a faker. So Tiamary, I love you, miss you, thank you for everything, and I'll see you soon.